All right, I got asked a lot of good questions about these cicada that are coming out as part of Brood X. So one thing I'll say is that technically the name is Brood 10. This is like a Roman numeral X, which equals 10, but I think Brood X is much cooler of a name. And these are the cicadas. I'm going to point out a couple things about their body. I'm going to point out like their wings first of all. It's like a very clear cellophane type structure, which I'll get into in a little bit. But they have very unique looking bodies. Like you can see, like their legs are segmented. They have little grabby things here. Somewhere on these legs is where they make their sounds from and all that stuff. And you can kind of see their head. These are their eyes here. They're really big and bulgy. It's kind of hard to see, but these mandibles are large. They eat a lot, and as a group, they eat a lot of food. So when's it coming? It's coming this year. And when will it get here? So it'll get here when the soil temperature reaches, you ready for this? 64.5 degrees. So here's New Jersey. This is on Rutgers' website. It has all kinds of information about different things that are going on, weather or temperature related in the state. And this one right here just happens to be the soil temperature map. So not every county is represented, but most areas are. I imagine like this soil up here is a little bit colder. This is where High Point is. It's a little elevated. It's probably a little warmer than here, where this is, I think, Morris County, or is this Hudson? I'm not sure which county this is. This might be Morris County here. So what do we do with this information? Well, we can know when it reaches 64.5, as you can see 64 down here, they're going to start to hatch through the ground. Like that's the temperature that they begin to like pop up through the ground because that's where they're buried. That's where their eggs are. That's what their life cycle will indicate. After 17 years, you wait for the temperature to be 64.5 degrees Fahrenheit, and then they pop right out of the ground. Our nearest temperature is Morristown. That's pretty close. And it's only got to get a little bit warmer and probably just has to stay warmer for a few more days. Maybe like a week or two of temperatures like we've had the last couple days, and they'll start to hatch. But I don't think it's going to be as warm as it was. So, it's kind of something I've learned about looking at these cicadas is this one looks a little bit different, right? Is there, I thought their wings almost look like clear, and they're kind of known as like clumsy flyers. And a couple years ago, and there's some like just some basic information on here about like this is the app I kind of showed in a few of the classes, Cicada Safari. It's an app you can download, and I think on Android and iPhone to track where people are noticing them. So like if you notice them on that app, you take a picture, you post like where it is and all that, and it updates like so people can find out where the broods are. So there's just some basic information about cicadas, and they are cool little bugs. A little breakdown of like what their body's muscles and tendons look like, even, which is kind of cool, and some information about their life cycle and all that. All right, and down here, this is the life cycle. All right, so this is like the egg, right? And then it's like a nymph, and then it progresses all the way through to like its adult life cycle. This is like the kind of picture we started with. All right, so annual cicadas we hear all the time. Periodic cicadas, like these are the ones that are in the broods that we're going to hear now, like Brood X. Now, there's also ones that don't really have like a set pattern. They just kind of live. I don't know how they live, really, to be honest with you. Like, I think they emerge every year, or sometimes they won't, or sometimes they'll all emerge together. Depending on, here it is, factors, here it is, depending on factors like proximity to other species and rainfall accumulations. All right. So I also misquoted this in class. Like, we talked about how many cicada would be in Brood X, and I said tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions. It's actually going to be into the trillions of these bugs. So there'll be a lot of these bugs coming around. All right. So I want to mention this, like, why are cicadas such clumsy flyers? So the thing I'll point out about this is that a high school student was curious about this. All right, and he was watching cicadas and trees. He noticed that they couldn't fly that much. They could fly, but they didn't fly much. So basically, what he did, his dad was a chemist at West Virginia, and he didn't. His dad probably had some access to a lab or something like that where he could, test things. So they did a neat little test. They took the wings, all right, and they looked at two different areas. The vein, which is this outer part, and these little ridges that go through, that's the vein. And then the membrane, and that's this middle part here. And what they kind of noticed is that the vein and the membrane have similar parts. Like they just measured the proteins in them, right? And right up here, you see like a little peak, and you see a peak. But then on the vein one, you see like some up and downs of like proteins and things in different areas. And over here, it's not exactly the same, but it's similar. So the reason why these guys are clumsy flyers is because, let me find a picture of these guys here to help you with this visual. All right, here we go. We got this guy. So this part of the bug right here is called the exoskeleton. Even on the legs, there's exoskeleton. Well, this clear part that looks like, plastic wrap or cellophane, that's actually a real thin part of the exoskeleton, which is like a pretty hard shell to protect the bug from like, different things like predators, the elements that are outside. So these wings are almost like made out of armor. So they can fly, but they're clumsy flyers. How far can they fly? They can fly about as in a day. They could fly about as far as a person can runs in a marathon. So about 25 to 30 miles is about how far they can go in a day. If you think about a bird, like a bird, I'm sure can fly much, much further than that. And let me see, how far can a bird fly in a day? I'm sure they can fly further than 25 miles. Okay, so maybe some don't fly that much, and maybe some do. So I tell you what, comments, I wouldn't mind if you left a prediction. When do you think the cicadas will hatch? Here it's 57 degrees, and we're going to talk about in our area because we should hear them in our area. So it's 57 degrees in the soil now. When do you think it'll get up to 64.5? All right, you could leave that in the comments. And also, I was looking at this, and I think this is what I'd like activity to be this week for P. I know a lot of you are getting outside bike rides and walks, and I did a little Hainesport image search, and there's not a lot of great pictures. I mean, here's our school over here on the right side over here. Hey, here's Route 38 on the other side, and then not a bunch of pictures. All right, Hainesport Deputy Mayor and former Hainesport student Lee Schneider. And you got some homes that I'm sure were for sale, and they're like in a realty website. You have the tan zone, but not a bunch of great pictures. Here's a trampoline park, but not a bunch of like pictures about like what Hainesport really is. So what I would like you to post in your Google Classroom while you're out on your walks and things, I would like to see what you think some of the best sites are in Hainesport. Like, what's a good picture of Hainesport? Can you take a good picture right here in town and please post in the classroom while you're walking, biking, or maybe out looking at birds, trees, or listening for cicadas? Okay, guys and girls, so there's some information about cicadas, and also like get yourself a picture of our town. Let's see what you think our town's most interesting or beautiful or pretty spots or points are.